What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to a video that really caught my attention called Why Canada Has a Terrible USA Problem. Which, if you're an American, you really don't love to hear that. But, on the other hand, you have to come to terms with the fact that it's pretty hard to deny at this point. So today, I want to take a look at this and, try to see this situation from your perspective, a Canadian perspective, and learn more about why Canada now considers the United States to be a big problem. And perhaps learn more about what's going to happen from here. So let's take a look.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is here in Beijing.
Canada moves away from dependence on the United States.
Canada is looking for options.
President Xi and I
Sure.
are announcing that Canada and China are forging a new strategic partnership.
I have heard about this. Canada and China forming a new partnership. This was kind of big news, and especially because it made Donald Trump so upset to the point where he was threatening Canada and trying to coerce you into not doing any kind of strategic partnership with China. Yeah, it's true that China is a big sort of a rival of the United States, especially now that it looks like Canada and maybe perhaps a lot of countries around the world are starting to... We've actually gotten to the point where more people trust China than the United States, at least in terms of trade or this strategic kind of stuff. But it's pretty mind-boggling that Trump actually tried to threaten you guys over this, because as much as we we don't trust China that much, and we are certainly rivals in that sense, but the United States relies on China for so many things. We trade so much with China. So the idea that we can do that, but you guys can't, or it's bad when you do it, but it's good when we do it. Anyway, that's something I had heard about.
It turns out that if you rig your entire economy to serve a single market, that country's government holds tremendous leverage. These are Canadian exports. The biggest are energy, minerals, and motor vehicles and parts. They support 1 in 5 Canadian jobs and make up a third of the Canadian economy. And of these 3 main export categories, most of it is destined for the United States. And what would you expect? It is without a doubt Canada's main economic advantage that they have easy access to US markets.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be egotistical or weird about this, but it's it's advantageous for Canada to do trade with the United States, and likewise, it's extremely advantageous for us to get to do trade with Canada. And it was a very mutually beneficial thing that somewhere along the line, Trump decided it was not mutually beneficial, and he decided, Canada, that you were taking advantage of us by selling us your energy and auto parts and all this. Anyway, you could go on and on about that kind of stuff, kind of drive you crazy. But yeah, I'm just trying to say what a travesty this whole thing is, because it's pretty good for both of us. And yeah, certainly for Canada, I think the facts of the matter are that you exported most of your stuff to the United States. It's a very big deal.
But this becomes a vulnerability when Washington's focus turns inwards.
They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it.
U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to impose a 100% tariff.
Is it possible for Canada to become independent from the United States, or are they locked in by geography? This is...
That is the question that I'm sure a lot of Canadians are asking or have been asking for the last year. And from quite a few things that I've heard in like the news and in other YouTube videos, Canada is making a lot of effort and taking a lot of very real steps to do exactly this. Not have to rely on the United States, because let's be honest here, very selfishly, if you're an American, if you're the United States, it's great when other countries have to rely on us. That's great for us. It puts us in a great position, and unfortunately a position that we have decided to exploit. Like a year ago and further into the past, things were really, really good for the U.S. And we decided to like throw that all away and break everyone's trust and coerce and exploit the position of trust and power that we were in. And I suppose Donald Trump and our government assumed that this could never change, that we could just do anything, we could threaten anything, we could just selfishly like force any terms to only favor us and break everyone's trust. And like we just assumed there would be no backlash, that there would be no consequences, or excuse me, that our position could never change. And now the whole world, perhaps with Canada sort of leading the way, is changing. I just can't emphasize this enough.
Canada's US problem with hindsight.
You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
Canada is currently...
Wow. Yeah, this was Mark Carney's like Davos speech, considered now to be one of like the most legendary speeches in modern history. Excuse me. Definitely have like a little bit of a cold or something. Like some there's during this like winter time, there are so many like viruses or whatever. You go to the doctor and they don't even have like a scientific word for the virus strain that you have anymore. Because I already had COVID like a month ago. Yeah, COVID. How out of fashion is that? And then RSV, and now some unknown virus. And anyway, woe is me. And now we can't even get the Canadian cold medicine because of tariffs. And okay, joking aside, legendary speech by Mark Carney, literally talking about how countries like Canada and middle powers and such should move away from integration with the U.S.
pushing for what they call strategic autonomy.
Many countries are drawing the same conclusions, that they must develop greater strategic autonomy in energy, food, critical minerals, in finance and supply chains.
The challenge, however, is that the United States is by far the easiest foreign market to serve. Europe is far away, and major industrial regions like Ontario would have to cross the Rocky Mountains to reach markets in Asia. But
yeah, let's be clear here. It is very, very, very annoying for Canada to have to get other trade partners. Like, I think that's what makes it perhaps why the U.S. thought Canada would never do all this. But it's very, very annoying for Canada to have to, like, renegotiate and realign all these new trade partnerships, because geographically it's hard to overcome the fact that Canada and the United States, we're right there. We're connected at the hip. And I guess that just kind of shows how passionate and how serious Canada is about all this, since you guys are doing it.
Canada is up for the challenge. The way that they're trying to become more autonomous is actually much simpler than you may expect, and they have been in this position before.
Oh. What?
In the late 1700s, 13 colonies in North America were fighting against British rule, and they were gaining the upper hand. But in these colonies, there lived many tens of thousands of people who had remained loyal to the British crown. And when the United States gained independence, many of them migrated north. The most popular destination was Quebec, a British province. And they brought with them a conviction that they were distinctly not American. But the young republic down south was ambitious. They purchased Louisiana, they acquired Florida, and they annexed Texas. They were quickly becoming the fastest growing country in the world, and not just geographically. Their economy was growing remarkably fast, and much faster than Canada's. This presented both a challenge and an incredible opportunity. Early leaders in Canada wanted to remain separate from the United States, but they also saw the benefit of having access to this immense customer base. So in 1854, they made a deal. On the front
This is interesting. I didn't know that there was any kind of history we can go back at and look at that's anything like anything comparable to what is happening today. So I'm kind of curious what they're getting at here.
page of the New York Times, the Reciprocity Treaty was the top story. This deal was between the United States and the province of Canada, as well as New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and it facilitated business between these places. In the following years, Canadian industries like fisheries, timber, and agriculture were completely restructured to produce for export to the United States. This was a hugely profitable endeavor until a decade later, US Congress unexpectedly voted against renewing the treaty.
Ooh, interesting. So even back like so long ago, during the formation of our countries, we figured it out even then that we were stronger working together than we are apart in this mutual beneficial relationship. And but even back then, we had a treaty, and the U.S. government decided not to renew this trade agreement. Kind of like what's happening soon with the Canada, U.S., Mexico trade agreement that's coming up soon, the renegotiation. It's just like this. They didn't renew it.
This meant that overnight, all Canadian exports to the United States faced steep tariffs. The next year, they confederated as the Dominion of Canada, or simply Canada, and while this had many reasons, it was partly influenced by a desire to reduce dependence on the United States. And this started a pattern.
Whoa! Really? Why did we do this back then, back in the day? Like, we're doing it now because we're stupid. Is that just like history is doomed to repeat itself? Humans are just the folly of man. We're just dumb and doomed to repeat our mistakes. So we didn't renew the trade agreement. There were tariffs on Canada back then, and Canada back then, a long time ago, realized, hey, maybe we have to lessen our dependence upon the United States.
First, Canada increases its dependency, then its vulnerability is exposed, and then they search for more autonomy. And this pattern would repeat throughout history.
Oh, I see.
In the late 19th century, industrialization in the United States took off. And around this time, Canada already had most of its modern borders, and its economy had developed in large part to serve US demand. Farmers in southern Ontario were much closer to Buffalo, Detroit, or Chicago than they were to Montreal or Halifax.
I'm starting to understand this a little bit better. Like, Canada has gone through this cycle before. And I understand now. It's really because the United States, we've had a lot of success and a lot of wealth, a lot of technological growth, and Canada being right there, obviously you want to profit off of that. You want to trade with us. You want to get in on all of the gravy train, for lack of a better word. Obviously, there's amazing things going on in Canada as well, but the United States is just bigger, has a bigger population. Anyway, so obviously Canada is highly incentivized to not go all in, but go in a lot on the United States to, do trade and make money off of us. And then perhaps it goes too far, and then we betray you, then you guys back off, then enough time goes on by, you guys reassimilate, you interconnect with us too much reliance, we betray you again, you back off. This is a cycle this has happened before? I did not know that.
Timber from Quebec could float down rivers to New York State, and wheat from the prairies was more easily shipped to Minneapolis than to eastern Canada. Canada's geography was simply better suited to serve US demand than it was to serve its own domestic markets. And
Wow.
they were treating the US quite unfairly.
We're kind of lucky to have a country like Canada. Like, we're actually very fortunate, because it sounds like the United States has benefited massively off of Canadian trade, like helping us grow bigger and better as well. And likewise, we have helped you if you're selling things to us. And yeah, I don't see any problem with this. It's just when, since we're the bigger side, if we exploit this relationship, that's when the problem starts. And I guess that's inevitable for humans to do.
They imposed steep tariffs on US imports, and when McKinley was elected to the White House, he retaliated. And
Oh, Canada tariffed us. How could you? What is this?
in the decades leading up to World War II, they had again fused their economies like never before. Before the war, a third of Canadian exports went to the United States, but from the 1950s and onwards, this increased to 2/3.
Wow. 2/3. I didn't even realize it was that. That is. Obviously, the American market is a massive part of the Canadian economy and your trade and your exports. Yeah. Which, it's never good to have to rely on one single country for that much. But it's nice if you can. It's just become obvious that you can't.
Until Nixon came to power. He abruptly imposed a 10% surcharge on all imports, which overnight made Canadian products much less competitive. Increased dependence led to vulnerability, and this led to a search for autonomy, which at this time meant getting better trade deals.
So this has happened numerous times with several U.S. presidents, waiting for Canadian dependency on us to rise, using that as a vulnerability, and then demanding more or unfair trade agreements, and then Canada tries to search for its independence and autonomy from the U.S. And this has happened several times in the past. I really did not know this. This is fascinating.
And this historical cycle is now continuing under Trump.
Canada, what they've done to our dairy farm workers is a disgrace. They charge 5 times what we charge for tariffs. And I believe in the word reciprocal. You're going to charge 5 times, we're going to charge 5 times.
Except then we tariffed everything, not just the dairy. Do we rely on Canada for a lot of dairy? Like, I really feel like Trump just is using that. Like, Canada tariffs us, and we're like, really? What? Dairy. The dairy. It's like, don't we have cows? Like, is that a big deal? What? And now you're going to use that to do sweeping tariffs on Canadians' energy and aluminum and steel and cars and over some milk?
Access to the US market is Canada's main economic advantage, but when US politics turn inward, it becomes a vulnerability. So let's now focus on how this historical trend is currently playing out, and I want to work towards how Canada can actually become more autonomous. The economies of Canada and the United States are deeply intertwined. 2 out of every 3 Canadians live within 100 kilometers of the border. Tens of thousands cross the border each day to go shopping or to go to work.
I think a lot of Americans really don't realize, like, how close a lot of Canadians live to the United States, that, like, so many Canadians are very close to the border Because in the United States, we're like spread out pretty much all over the United States. Concentrated in major cities, of course, but like everywhere in the US, there's people, basically. In Canada, like most of us Americans had no idea that not many Canadians, like the further north you go, like the amount of Canadians like decreases like more and more and more and more, probably like exponentially decreases the more you go north. A lot of us don't know that.
The US is still Canada's biggest export market. Well over 70% of exports last year went to the United States, and that was a historic low. As well as 60% of all goods that Canada imported came from the United States. They mainly export energy, which made up 25% of exports in 2024. And they mostly import motor vehicles and consumer goods. But Canada's government is currently tasked with reducing its dependence on the United States, and this might actually be much simpler than you might expect.
And we believe that not only would
Really?
trade benefit our neighbors, it would open new markets, new opportunities for businesses and investors.
The US-Canada border has gradually been stripped of any barriers. This is mostly visible in car manufacturing. Parts and materials to produce a single car crossed the border multiple times, which was made possible with the Auto Pact in the 1960s.
Yeah, I heard. This was kind of a big story a few months ago. Another thing most of us Americans never knew is that our auto industries are so intertwined, or at least the development of automobiles, and that became kind of a big deal with the tariffs.
This created a single cross-border system that was later rolled out with NAFTA, which facilitated cross-border trade even more.
One of my proudest moments as President of the United States.
And then there's oil and gas.
It's been called one of the largest oil discoveries in the past few years.
The Canadian oil sands industry is thriving.
Most of this is produced in Alberta.
This vital energy resource creates good-paying jobs, and not just in Canada. There are currently 80,000 U.S. jobs associated with Canadian oil sands.
Canada was fortunate enough to have so much oil and gas that it far exceeded what they needed themselves.
So the United States also buys oil and gas from Canada. And I know Trump has phrased most of this as like somehow a bad thing. You know, like he thinks there's a trade deficit. Like, oh, we buy more from Canada than Canada buys from us or whatever. It's like Canada is taking advantage of us when we want to buy a ton of your stuff. Like, how I've always wondered, how is that taking advantage of anything? Like, it's not like we're giving you money and getting nothing. We're getting oil and auto things and precious metals and, you know, the list, and milk, and the list goes on and on and on. Like, anyway, that's always annoyed me, how that has been like the basis for a lot of Trump's decision making on this.
They could have built an industry to refine oil domestically and to export this to foreign markets, but that would carry a lot of risk. Such refineries cost billions to construct, and they operate with very thin profit margins. Alberta is landlocked by the Rocky Mountains and the Coast Range, making it more challenging to export to markets in the Pacific, whereas the United States had a huge domestic demand. It was right there across the border, and they had already built the type of refineries that Canada needed. So Canada made the strategic decision not to build this market domestically, but to invest in a complex network of pipelines to bring this oil and gas from producer zones in Canada to refineries in the United States.
Oh my God, I did not know about this. That kind of sucks for Canada, but it was your decision. Talk about integrating your country with the United States. Oh my God. I didn't know about this. So you're just using pipelines, Canadian pipelines from Canada deep into the US to just send your crude oil directly to us for refining. It makes sense. I mean, again, all of this stuff makes total sense when you have a trustworthy trading partner. It's actually fantastic. It's great for everybody. But when you have an untrustworthy trading partner, after investing in all of this, that sucks.
This created an interdependence where US refineries needed Canada's crude oil and gas, and Canadian producers can almost only export to the United States. In the 21st century, crude oil production steadily increased, and this was primarily because Canada started producing fields with a very heavy, tar-like oil that the United States now eagerly needed. They had begun to run out of this type of oil themselves, and the Canadian oil was needed to keep their expensive refineries running. All of this shows that over the last couple of decades that the Canadian and American economies got even more intertwined. This is the first step in the historical pattern, and this...
I didn't know about all that. That's incredible. But again, it sounds like interdependence. You need us to sell all this excess oil for money. We need you because we need the oil to do stuff. How does it... Somehow it gets to the point where, like, the United States becomes the one to try to use this as leverage, even though it seems like we need it ourselves.
This is followed by the US exposing Canada's vulnerability.
Thank you very much.
Is it not sort of a vulnerability to America too? Because we're depending on Canada for all this crude raw oil, right?
Trump had a different view on their trade relationship.
The fact is, NAFTA, whether it's Mexico or Canada, is a disaster for our country. I have long contended that NAFTA was perhaps the worst trade deal ever made and lost 4.1 million manufacturing jobs and 1 in 4 auto jobs.
Frankly speaking, like, especially as an American, if you've been paying attention to any of the data being released by Trump or by the US government lately, especially financial and economic data that's been released, you can't trust any of it. Like, it's a very sad state of affairs. And like, in the United States, they will release economic data or like jobs numbers, and then like a month later revise the numbers. Like, literally be like, we're making a change, an alteration in a one-page press release. Like, yeah, there was 100,000 less jobs than we said a month ago. It's like, what? So, frankly, at this point, sad as it is to say, I can't really just trust any data point that, like, the president or the government says. Like, you really gotta do some deep research to get to the bottom of things, unfortunately.
Threatened Canada with tariffs, but the US now had also become more dependent on Canada. In San Antonio, nearly half of all exports is destined for the Canadian market. In Detroit, nearly 40%. And in Pittsburgh, the second largest city of a major swing state, 25% of exports serve Canadian demand. Trump had leverage, but he refrained from using this too aggressively.
It's my great honor to announce that we have successfully completed negotiations on a brand new deal to terminate and replace NAFTA.
His goal was to score a political win and to get a more favorable agreement in the process. But he didn't want to push too hard.
The USMCA is...
The good old days. Maybe. When it was less crazy. So we renegotiated some kind of trade deal with Canada, and like, I don't have any problem with that, just like negotiating, talk, like, seemingly not from a stance of insanity, but like, it's like buying a car. Like, you're allowed to, you know, be a little aggressive and try to get yourself a better deal than the car salesman is trying to get. Like, that's just negotiation with businesses and trade. That's fine that exists. That's okay that that's a thing. But it's just that today it's been taken to the point of insanity.
The largest, most significant, modern, and balanced trade agreement in history. As part of our agreement, the United States will be able to lock in our market access to Canada and Mexico.
In reality, the new trade agreement was better for the United States, but it remained the same in its core. And after this, Trump went after car manufacturing.
Crushing news for assembly lines that stretch across the Canadian auto industry.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States.
This made up 13% of total exports to the United States.
This was like the beginning of the end right here. Like the 25% tariffs on auto parts, and this is getting into last year or 2024 or whatever. And no, Trump wasn't president in 2024. So this is just old data right here. But the tariffs on the auto parts and that stuff last year, that was like the beginning of the end.
Making it Canada's most important export after energy exports. The US then radically increased production of shale oil.
Alberta's economy is built on oil and gas.
Barrel of Alberta crude to U.S. refineries for $10 in a world where the real price is over $50.
This was a major disruption for the Canadian energy sector, but they had nowhere else to go. The pipelines that they had built were all directed to the United States. The oil naturally flowed to refineries in the Midwest and the Gulf, and as long as the market is structured in a way that the United States buys most of the oil, they can pretty much set the price.
That sucks. I'm trying to think about this. Like, if you're Canada and you've literally built pipelines just to sell and transfer your oil to the United States alone, obviously that's a very efficient, fast way to make money. But my God, like, talk about putting all your eggs in one basket. You have to be ready to just give it all up if the United States goes nuts and says, no, we're not buying your oil for the fair market value anymore. Ha ha. Which is essentially what has happened.
Justin Trudeau is in Alberta to discuss the record low oil price of Canada's oil with politicians and industry stakeholders. But he didn't arrive to much fanfare.
This vulnerability.
Build the pipe to where? To under the ocean? To Europe? I mean, isn't that kind of a thing? Maybe you should.
Started new political rhetoric in Canada about increasing their autonomy.
Crude by rail needs to happen sooner than later.
We basically have only one customer for our energy resources.
After targeting energy and cars, next was steel.
Today, I'm defending America's national security by placing tariffs on foreign imports of steel and aluminum.
Okay, this is like very good to like. It's not good that this happened. It's good for Americans like me to see and understand just how deeply this breach of trust and how much this relationship was completely effed, completely screwed. Like, we specifically went after sectors of trade in which Canada depended on the United States the most, like the oil pipeline stuff. We deliberately went after those and put tariffs on that stuff, or demanded better prices or whatever. It's no wonder this has absolutely decimated our relationship.
Trump was hitting Canada in all the places where it hurt them the most, and Canada responded with targeted counter-tariffs that were deliberately aimed at politically sensitive areas. Canada imposed tariffs targeting steel in Pennsylvania and orange juice in Florida. And now Canada pushed for more autonomy.
That reflects the shared values between Canada and Europe.
Trudeau signed a new trade deal with the EU and with countries in the Pacific.
11 countries are set to put pen to paper on a mega free trade deal in the coming hours.
And their push for autonomy is perhaps best visible with energy.
And it is so stupid that the okay, maybe we got some great deal on oil or whatever for like a few months out of this crazy period, but we have absolutely destroyed the long-term outlook of the United States. We've destroyed it. And the long-term trade relationships of the United States. Ruined. Was it worth it? For like a year or whatever of forcing Canada to live by these terms? Was it worth it? I don't know.
Between Alberta and the Pacific coast exists this pipeline for natural gas and this minor pipeline for oil that had existed since the 1950s. But it was a small pipe with limited productivity, and this constrained Alberta's oil exports to the United States. But in 2018, the Canadian government put their weight behind finishing the Trans Mountain expansion. This pipeline connected Alberta's crude oil to ports on the Pacific, from where it could be sold to countries in China and Japan. If Canada could reach customers beyond the United States, it would gain bargaining power. The way to think about Canada's current push towards more autonomy isn't that they're trying to reduce their economic integration with the United States. What they're trying to do is to get more options, which would give them more bargaining power in Washington. Their vulnerability.
Sure, absolutely. And given the state of everything right now, this makes total sense. And in a strange way, maybe this will, like, for Canada, maybe this will all turn out to, like, not be a good thing, but not bad, that now you have all these other options to sell your stuff to throughout the world.
Is Washington's leverage. The Trans Mountain expansion is now able to transport 20% of total Canadian crude exports, but it's currently only using about half of its capacity. Through these types of projects, by building new factories and terminals to help bypass the United States, Canada is gaining options which it can use to reduce Washington's leverage.
Again, this was so... The United States having this oil pipeline network, bringing oil directly from Canada to us, that sounds like a dream. That sounds like the kind of thing you would never want to mess up. And we've messed it up.
We're competing for the same business. He wants to make cars, we want to make cars, and we're in competition. And the advantage we have is we have this massive market.
Trump challenges the view that Canada and the United States work as a single entity, and he looks at Canada as a competitor.
The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company. They want steel and we want steel.
This is so, like, Trump doesn't seem to know anything about, like, economics or, like, intercontinental trade. Like, he thinks of everything in terms of, like, a burger stand, like a business. Like, if there's another hamburger restaurant down the street, they're taking your business. It's like, no, that's not what's going on here. This is a very mutually beneficial thing going on. It's not like one restaurant versus another. It's such a simplistic, stupid view of it all.
So in other countries, they're very far away, and there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete. And so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing.
Oh my God. Mark Carney is, like, rolling his eyes listening to this. Because Mark Carney actually, like, understands finance and banking and stuff. Like, he knows about this kind of stuff, right? Isn't that his background? This must sound extra stupid to him.
Nothing wrong with it.
This is what Carney seeks to balance.
Canada and China have immense strengths and complementary strengths.
China isn't a replacement, it's a counterbalance. Trump's policies expose the vulnerabilities of a one-market economy, and Canada seeks leverage by getting options.
Canada now has set the goal of doubling our exports to China by the end of this decade.
Canada's push for autonomy has historically been reactive and not strategic. Whenever US policy turned inwards, Canada scrambled to diversify.
Wow, this is fascinating because, to be honest, I didn't know about this aspect of the trade history between the US and Canada, how intertwined we've been, and how this is not the first time that the United States has tried to take advantage of this relationship. And, you know, conversely, you can also look at it as, like, it's not the first time Canada, like, tried to go all in and extract the maximum value in being, like, geographically integrated with the United States, and it's majorly backfired. But you'd like to think that there's actually a world we could have lived in where Canada could go all in on the US and we could kind of go massively in on Canada and both benefit a ton. I think that's what was happening for a long time, until our side got greedy.
It's like we're seeing right now. But when the United States become cooperative and predictable again, those efforts lost urgency and funding. Ironically, their search for autonomy historically didn't mean that Canada loosened its integration into US markets. Their access to this massive customer base remains Canada's main economic advantage, and decoupling its economy is neither the objective nor is it desirable. Instead, the search for autonomy was often directed at becoming partners with the United States on more favorable terms.
Well, you know, I hope that we can go back a bit to how things were, because it did benefit the United States. I don't think it will go back to exactly how things were. It looks like Canada and many countries are putting in a ton of investment, a ton of effort to make sure it actually doesn't go back to relying on the US, but there will always be some level of integration between our countries. If nothing else, for the geographical reality that we're in.
Becoming more autonomous is about risk management. They want to become less susceptible to US pressure, and they do this by gaining options.
So a huge shout out to the people.
Okay, is that it? I think that's it. So Canada talking to China. I know you guys you're talking to Europe as well, the EU, lots of these trade deals and military deals and a lot of stuff going on, while the United States just sits here and, well, if you saw the Supreme Court ruling, some of Trump's tariffs were ruled to be illegal, which is a huge mess. And now he's throwing a huge tantrum and seeking revenge on the U.S. Supreme Court by tariffing the globe, the planet, with 15% tariffs, including Canada. Global tariffs. That's what we're doing, I guess. It's so incredibly frustrating and tiresome, and the damage that is being done to the United States and our reputation, and we're trying to hurt the world, or at least Trump is. Like, it's such a mess, it's such a disappointment, it's so bad, it's hard to even think about. But that's what's going on right now, and there's negotiations that are coming up between Canada and the US, and still like 3 more years of Trump in office. But it was really good today to see like sort of the history between Canada and the US. I have such a better understanding now of the trading relationship and history between our two countries, and how we got to where we are today, and what's going to happen and going into the future. I have such a better understanding now. So this was great. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like, or leave a comment with your thoughts on all this crazy stuff going on between Canada and the US, and the trade and the tariffs, and Canada moving away from the US, and what you think about all this. That'd be really valuable to hear, especially from Canadians out there. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian things that I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.